We continue looking at Chapter 4 by looking at measures of spread, also known as measures of dispersion. We're going to look at range, interquartile range, and standard deviation. And we only look at population standard deviation. Range is just the highest value minus the lowest value, and interquartile range is the upper quartile minus the lower quartile, also known as Q3 minus Q1. Standard deviation indicates the typical distance of all scores from the mean. We're going to look at examples of how to calculate the range and the interquartile range from a list of scores. The range is just the highest value minus the lowest value, which is 17 minus 11 equals 6. When we calculate the interquartile range, we have to have the set of scores sorted from low to high. We're then going to find the upper quartile and subtract the lower quartile to find the interquartile range. You have to find the median first so that you can split the scores into a lower half of scores and an upper half of scores. This is an odd number of scores, so we've only got score number 5 in the middle and the median is 15. The lower half of the scores is an even number of scores, so the quartile 1 will be the average of two numbers, and the average of 12 and 12 is just 12. In the upper half, the average of 15 and 16 is 15 plus 16 divided by 2, 15 and a half. That gives us an interquartile range of 15 and a half minus 12 is equal to 3 and a half. When we have an even number of scores in our list, it doesn't affect the range. It's still the highest minus the lowest. And once again, it's 17 and 11, which gives a range of 6. When we do the interquartile range, we have to find the median first. Because it's an even number of scores, it will be the average of the two scores that are in the middle. And the average of 14 and 15 is 14 and a half. Neither 14 nor 15 is actually the median. So 14 is included in the lower half of scores and 15 is included when you look at the upper half of scores to find the upper quartile. In the lower half of scores, I've got an odd number of scores. So the lower quartile would be score number 3, which is 12. In the upper half, the score in the middle there is the upper quartile is 15. Interquartile range, 15 minus 12 is 3. Standard deviation, we use the statistics mode on our calculators to do this. I'm going to explain the steps on the Casio calculator. If you've got a different board-approved calculator, see your teacher or look up in the booklet how to do that. We're going to use this list of scores as an example. It's a good practice to activate the frequency column on your calculator now, and you won't have to redo this step every time. You only need this column if you're working with frequency distribution tables or with very high frequencies of scores. You do this by shift mode, go down with the arrow, select option 3, which is statistics, and option 1, which turns the frequency column on. If we now want to calculate the standard deviation, we've only got 3 steps to follow. We select the statistics mode, we enter the scores, and we then end the entering and start retrieving the summary statistics we need. To select the statistics mode, we use mode 2, which is statistics, and number 1, which is variable. Focus more on what you are selecting than what number it is, which will help you if you use a slightly different model of the calculator at a different time. You enter the scores by entering each score followed by an equal symbol. Score equals symbol, score equals symbol. Once you've entered the last score and the last equal symbol, You press the button AC, shift 1, which is statistics again, and number 4, which will give you the variables. You have 4 options there once again. Number 1, which is the N, will show you how many scores you've entered. Number 2, with the symbol for the mean, will give you the mean. And number 3, with the symbol for population standard deviation, will give you the standard deviation we want here. The 4th one is sample standard deviation, and we don't do that in the general maths course. If we want to determine the measures of spread from grouped data in a frequency distribution table, we add a cumulative frequency column, which is just the running total of the frequencies. You draw a cumulative frequency histogram and ogive, which will look like this, and we then use the ogive to determine the median, lower quartile and upper quartile. We see the total number of scores was 60, so then we know halfway up to 60 would be score 30, and this is where we determine the median. Although we don't really need the value of the median, we just need this line here to split it into a lower half of scores and an upper half of scores. In the lower half, we determine middle of that will give us quartile 1, which is 145. In the upper half of the scores, in the middle of that, the upper quartile, draw the line until you reach the ogive, go down, and middle between 165 and 175 gives you an upper quartile of 170 with an interquartile range 170 minus 145 equals 25. We just quickly look at box and whisker plots again. You need the 5 numbers summary in order to draw a box and whisker plot, or you can get the 5 number summary from a box and whisker plot already drawn. There's the 5 values that is used for a box and whisker plot. The box in the middle with the whiskers on the outside. So the lowest score and the highest score are on the ends of the whiskers, and the median, lower quartile and upper quartile forms the box. We have now looked at the 3 measures of central tendency and the 3 measures of spread. It's important to know when which measure is better to refer to and better to be used. In order to research this, you may make use of your textbook, Chapter 4D, as well as the PDF document that's in the STEM on iTunes U, and make a summary in your book where you indicate the pros and cons for each measure so that you would know in which situations which measure is not applicable and which one is better to use. After you've made that summary, you continue to do the homework questions that's also available in the STEM.